Should the Bengals just stop kicking field goals altogether? I know that sounds crazy to ask, but following the latest news with Evan McPherson, I really do feel like the Bengals have this unique sense of freedom that not many other teams have at this stage of the season. And in this video, I'll explain exactly how they can maximize it. Hi again, Bengals fans. John Sheeran of A to Z Sports Cincinnati here, and the latest season-ending injury for the Bengals involves kicker Evan McPherson. McPherson has been placed on injured reserve with a groin injury. He will be out for at least 4 weeks. There's only 5 games left of the regular season entirely, so technically he is eligible to return for that season finale against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 18. But in all likelihood, the Bengals are shutting down their place kicker, whom they paid pretty handsomely all the way back in August. Now, McPherson's struggles this year are well documented. We covered it on this channel a few weeks back. We're still talking about a team that needed a new kicker in early December. It's not exactly a position where there's a ton of qualified free agents just waiting around for a job. The Bengals didn't have a ton of options here. They needed a new kicker for the final 5 weeks of the season, and they landed on K York. Now, K York was a former Cleveland Browns draft pick back in 2022, and he only played a year in Cleveland because he was not very good. Now, this is the funny part of the whole thing, because the last time the Bengals had an injury at kicker is when Randy Bullock tweaked his calf while missing a chip shot in Week 1 of the 2020 season. And the guy who replaced Bullock for the time being was Austin Seibert, who was a draft pick by the Cleveland Browns the year prior, who was cut by the Browns because he wasn't very good. He was another Cleveland Browns draft bust. Obviously, you know the story from there. McPherson was drafted a year later. He's been with the Bengals ever since. And of course, the first time that he gets injured, they go back to another Cleveland Browns draft bust at kicker. And what is just the perfect chef's kiss cherry on top of this irony sundae is that K York was the Washington Commanders kicker to start this season, and he was cut after missing 2 of his field goals in Week 1, and he was replaced by none other than Austin Seibert. And now we're here. K York is a part of the Bengals practice squad. He can be elevated up to the active roster up to 3 times before he would have to be signed to the active roster in order to play. He was a part of that 2019 LSU National Championship team with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, so there's at least some familiarity there. But outside of extra points and kickoffs and field goals with the clock about to expire, I really don't think K York should see the field ever. I really do feel like this is the time for the Bengals to completely empty their 4th down playbook. Because for starters, K York is not better than Evan McPherson. His career field goal percentage is lower than what McPherson's field goal percentage is this year. If the Bengals were losing trust in McPherson hitting those kicks from beyond 40 yards, even though he had a history of doing so before the season, where is the trust in York doing the same thing? But this goes beyond just the differences between York and McPherson. This is about the Bengals needing as many points as possible in order to just compete. Settling for 3 points outside of scenarios where it's absolutely necessary should be considered a loss for the Bengals at this point in the season. As evidenced by the past 3 weeks, they need as many points as humanly possible just to compete in these games. And there is nothing left to lose at this point. They are 4-8. They are not going to the playoffs. Just have fun with it. If it's 4th and 7 from the 35-yard line, don't trot out K York for a 53-yard field goal. See if Joe Burrow can convert with Jamar Chase there. If it's 4th and 2 from the 40-yard line, go for it. If it's 4th and 4 from the 29-yard line, go for it. Unless they can win the game with a field goal, unless it is the end of the first half or the end of the game where a field goal could win it or get you points when you need it, don't send K York out there. We want to see Joe Burrow. We want to see this passing offense. We want to see the only competent part of this team win the game and put them in positions to win. Again, this is a very unique case. You're talking about one of the worst defenses in the NFL, a defense that cannot hold a lead unless the offense scores 40 or more. You're talking about a kicker that you don't know if you can trust, but you know that historically he's been worse than the guy who's been struggling for you this season. The only time that this team looks competent is when Joe Burrow has the ball. Put the ball in his hands as many times as reasonably possible. Make these final games watchable for us. It's not really asking for much, but I think we'd all like to see as much Joe Burrow as we possibly can before the season mercifully comes to an end.